9 o'clock! It's a Saturday morning. Oh yes, it's time for the Monster Magic Saturday Show. Let's do this.
Wake up, it's a beautiful morning. Feel the sun shining for your eyes.
Woo! Good morning. I hope you're all set for a glorious weekend. It is brass, monkeys, scarves, mittens, everything is required. Woo! Yes, blimey, I've got my little thermal t-shirt on. It is so cold on the boat, you wouldn't believe. Imagine sleeping in a car with the windows open and you'll get an idea. But that's not stopping the Monster Magic Show. Oh no, the show must go on. So without further ado, let's get into it. And first up, we have Invisible Palm by Harry G and JT Magic. The Invisible Palm, what a great plot. It's been around for donkeys. A favourite certainly of Larry Jennings. It's sort of developed around in the 60s where people like Di Vernon, Bruce Savon, Jennings, as I said, and Marlowe got hold of this plot and the idea of it. It's a sort of open traveller's plot done with the aces. I love it. It is a corker and you show you've got the 4 aces. You then put one of the aces down on the table and just cleanly display the other 3. You then explain this sort of pseudo faux explanation of how you can palm a card invisibly. So you pretend to palm a card, you show that it's not in your hand, you then place your hand on the other ace and the second ace appears down on the table. You then clearly show that you've got 2 aces left. You take the next ace, you do the same invisible palm scenario and place that down on the table and that appears with the other aces, and then you then do it with the final ace until all 4 aces are on the mat and you are left empty-handed. It is a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant piece of card magic. It's got this ability to be theatrical, but also quite comical as well. There's some sort of built-in humour when you're anything with a pseudo explanation has a brilliant hook in my mind. And when you show that the card isn't in your palm, but then it appears on the table, that is a real knockout moment. And the fact that you can repeat it is brilliant. Obviously, you are using the tent vanish and so on. I'm not a huge fan of the tent vanish in general, but it kind of works with this pseudo explanation because even if the audience think they've twigged on what happens with that vanish, the fact that the card then reappears sort of negates it. Traditionally, this routine is pure sleight of hand. So it's kind of vanished and become less popular because there's a trend now for buying tricks as a standalone trick, and if it's pure sleight of hand, it's very hard to release anything as a standalone thing unless you get something with it, and sending someone an ordinary deck of cards with some instructions isn't really going to work. So I was intrigued by this. I was intrigued what the gimmicks were. I was intrigued how it was going to help because the sleights used, they vary. There are so many versions of this trick. I'll probably try and tell you at the end. It is ridiculous. But if you think it's been going since the 60s and Marlowe, Jennings and the like knocked out lots of books and lots of pamphlets and lots of versions of the same trick. Certainly in Jennings 67, I think there's 5 or 6 versions of this trick. So I was intrigued as to what the gimmicks were and how they were going to help, because there is a moment, obviously, when cards have to get from one hand to the table. That has to happen. It's not genuine magic, I'm afraid. And I was wondering how that was going to help. And unfortunately, these gimmicks don't do that. I can't show you what the gimmicks are because that would be exposure, wouldn't it? But they are red, bicycle-backed gimmicks. They hide in plain sight. They're not going to break, and they're easy to carry around. If you just want to add them quickly to your deck in order to do this trick mid-performance, you can, no problem at all. But I'm not sure just how much they really help with the routine. I don't want to give too much away. I mean, it is in print, but it's often done. You often need an extra card, and you still need an extra card with this. You often need to do some sort of palm or transfer of the card, obviously, to get it on to the table. You still need to do that with this, and you've still got the problem of the last card. Much like the last coin in Free Fly, you have to sort of shake things up a bit. You either need to use the deck in this, or if you're sitting down, you can use another method, but it doesn't eliminate that either. All these gimmicks really help you do is with what I consider to be one of the easiest bits of the card, and that's the sort of the displays that you've only got 4 cards, and that isn't that difficult to do. With a bit of practice, you can spread 3 cards as 2 or 5 cards as 4 very easily. So I'm not quite sure what this adds, and unfortunately, obviously, it adds in the odd discrepancy as well at the end with the last ace, which is a shame. And for me, that kind of negates any benefit you get from these gimmicks. What I will say about this is that the teaching is really nice. The teaching is good, solid, nice tutorial. Everything's explained from a technical point of view. Unfortunately, what I've always found with anything like Open Travelers is that your performance and your motivation and where the attention is, or where you engage the audience, is one of the most important things. Especially if you're doing something slightly bold, you really need to have their attention elsewhere, and that's not covered here by Harry G at all in the tutorial. So often you're going to need to write some patter or something in order to get away cleanly with this, I would say, or to make your life easier. I'm not saying the sleights aren't particularly hard, and they are quite invisible on the whole. If done well, you'll get away with it. But I think it's quite nice to have that little added cover for any sleight at all. Just that little bit of added cover would help. And those sort of tips and subtleties, unfortunately, aren't covered here on the tutorial. And that is a real shame. I mean, sadly, I think the idea of calling this the ultimate invisible palm is a little bit of a misnomer. I'm just thrilled that this is probably highlighted it as a routine that people can go back and look at. I'm sure, I think Bill Malone has a version on one of his videos that's probably worth checking out. But book-wise, you really want sort of something like Jennings 67, Paul Harris, book 3 of Art of Astonishment, as a no palm version, which you may want to start off with. But David Costney's version in Close-Up Elegance, I think it's called, is brilliant and not very difficult at all. So I don't think these gimmicks are necessary for the trick one bit, because they don't really help with the boldest moves. It's certainly not a bad product. It's certainly not a bad idea. I think there's probably more benefit in just learning it from a straight standard deck of cards. That is the Ultimate Invisible Palm by Harry G, JT Magic, $22.99. Next up, we have got what is probably the biggest release of the week. It is Inverto by Liam Levanon. Gosh, I really thought I was going to be so disappointed with this trick. Just watching the trailer, it looked pie in the sky nonsense. It looked like it was just not going to be commercial or workable. It looked like it was going to be, oh, I don't know, just completely impractical. Gosh, I mean, I was so wrong. Absolutely knocked me for 6. And of course, it uses a phone, which I genuinely hate. The effect is one where you have the card selected and you write your participant's name across the face of that card. You then hand it to them and they write their name across the back of it. And then you introduce your phone, and you notice that you've got various different filters on it that will make you older or whatever the filter might do. You then show that you've got one that inverts the image. And you have them hold the card in front of the camera and you invert the image backwards and forwards a couple of times so they can see how the card and their signature reverses. You then put it back to normal, but they turn around and look at their card, and it is stuck inverted with the cards printed backwards and the name is written backwards. It is really, really a surprising piece of magic. I mean, couldn't probably get much further away from what your uncle would perform, and it is surprisingly practical and surprisingly easy. I really, really wasn't expecting to like this at all. What you get in here is basically a deck of cards and a bespoke printed joker, which helps you with a little bit of the trick. This deck of cards is basically the gimmicks. You get 28 gimmicks, you get 28 performances for your money. Now, this trick was actually much more expensive. I think it was like 30 odd pounds to start off with when I put it on the site, and Penguin have reduced the price right down now, so it's only £15.99. And I think the reason for that reduction is because they're not doing separate refills, as it were, so you're going to have to rebuy the trick. So by pricing the trick a very, very reasonable price, it makes the refills pretty cheap, because you are going to be giving away a signed card every time, because that is part of the joy of the trick. The tutorial is over an hour long. It's mainly Nick Lacapo. Unfortunately, he's filmed against a black background, so you can't make out his hair too well. It's also interspersed with Liam, who's offering his handlings too. And they both offer two handlings, a basic handling and an advanced handling. The basic handling, which is probably the one I think most people are going to be doing more often than not, is it's certainly, if you're a hobbyist, I would just do the basic handling, and that is when you know the person's name beforehand. So if you know you're going to be performing down your mates down the pub, you can prepare the cards in advance, and that just makes your life a little bit easier, because you do have to learn how to write someone's name backwards. You do actually have to create that final souvenir card. I know that might come as a surprise to some of you. So you can do that in advance, or you can do it on the fly in the advanced handling. There is something, the joker helps you with that, so it doesn't take up too much of your cognitive ability. Of course, if you've got a friend called Otto, you are made up. Go for him. If you've got someone whose name is Theodore, then perhaps you might want to shorten it to Theo. And if you've got someone whose name is Persephone, then perhaps just choose someone else. That's just to make your job that little bit easier. In the course of the routine, it is actually you that writes their name on the face of the card, and that is because obviously you need some sort of continuity with the rest of the effect, but they do sign the back of it. You might be nervous about giving them the card to sign, but really don't be. It looks completely normal, even if you can flash it a few times, as Liam does. It kind of looks fine from a glimpse. And also, when you're giving someone to sign, they're more concentrating on how they've signed their signature, whether they've done that correct, to actually really think about looking any further. I know Darwin Otis always used to put his finger on the card and hold it down when someone was signing it, and I never really liked that, although he is a very, very good magician. And really, for the basic method, there are very few there's nothing difficult at all. And when Nick first runs through it, he doesn't really go through the sleights very well. There's a force and a little change, but switch, but very, very easy, and it's all taught at the end in great detail. When he's running through the handling, if you've got any experience, then you won't need to go back and look at the details. You'll know exactly what he's doing and how he's doing it. The real thing you've got to practice probably is the blocking of it all. So you want as many people as possible to be looking at the screen. You don't want anyone the other side of the phone, obviously, because they will then see what is going on. So you just want to get everyone gathered around and looking down at the phone, and no one on the other side of the phone. How you manipulate that is up to you. And obviously your surroundings or what people are wearing might be important. If someone's got something written on their t-shirt or there's a sign behind you, that might give the game away as well. Nick actually covers quite well. If you hold the card, if you get them to hold the card closer to the phone, that'll cover quite a lot of what anyone's wearing, and you can always just shift around if there's a sign behind you when you start the trick. And Nick gives a lot of tips about how to make it look impressive. You want the card to be the star of the picture. And the only other real worry for me was, do I need an app? And the answer is you do. There's a very simple app that Penguin have provided. There's also one that Liam used to use before Penguin released this themselves. But you can also just use Instagram. Anything that has that inverted image scenario, you'll be absolutely fine. So you may already have it. I don't do Instagram, so I'm going to be using the app. And you can record the video at the same time as you're doing it if you want to send them that as a souvenir. What's also nice is you do get a couple of performances of Nick, one performing the basic handling and then one performing the advanced handling. Now, the advanced handling isn't really much harder at all, apart from you're writing the name on the fly. So it's when you don't know who you're going to be performing it for. And this is where obviously selection of your participant, if you ask a few people's names, you can go round and then you can just pick someone whose name is easy. You really want to be doing 4 or 5 letters, and obviously you need to know how to spell the name. There is a little gimmick in here as well that helps you with writing it on the fly. You do a little preamble of another trick before that helps you justify what you're writing. It's a really, really well thought out routine. It's not difficult at all. You don't want anyone standing behind you, but otherwise it is simple and easy to do. And that is what really, really surprised me. So you do need to do a sort of okay kind of trick first, but that's fine. That's absolutely fine, because what you're going to do next is going to blow their minds. And then, like I say, at the end, Nick runs through all of the slights, simple ways of forcing the card. I think just about every project has the same forces on it now, and how to do a couple of more advanced slights. You might know other ways of doing it. There are easier ways of doing it for sure. You just got to do whatever you're comfortable with, but I wouldn't be scared of doing this for people unprepared. Liam offers some bonus handlings as well and some practice tips. It's a great little trick. It's novel. It leaves them with an impossible souvenir that they have signed the back of for $15.99. It's Inverto by Liam Levanon. And next up, we've got Henry Harrius's Mystery Card Box. Yes, this reminds me very much of something I saw Gary Kurtz do back in 1995 as his second lecture for International Magic, which you can still get from International Magic if you want to check it out. It's slightly different. Henry it's new, it's improved, it's certainly better. And as Gary points out, having a card appear in a card box was not his. It has been going on for a very, very long time. The effect is simple enough. You have a card selected and signed, completely free choice, and you perform a magic trick of your will, whatever it might be, and then you show that you point to the card box, you open the card box, you show that there is a card inside. You can even give it a bit of a rattle, tip the card from inside the box, and it is their signed selection. It is a really powerful ending to any card routine that uses a signed selection. And as Gary points out in his lecture, you can put the cards back in the card box, and that is the cancellation theory of the method. Because the cards have gone back in the box must be empty and you are clean. I'm not going to show you the gimmick again for obvious reasons, but it fits in to any card box. It comes in red and blue, so choose a box that matches. And what Henry has added to Gary's idea is the fact that the card now moves, and it also makes a noise when you shake the box, which is brilliant. And it means the box can be in the spectator's hand and they can give it a shake, and they can open it up and they can look and see the card inside. And although Gary's version was very quick and easy to make up, this one you can transfer from one box to another should the box wear out. And I think you're probably going to be using this. I mean, I would just carry my cards in the box with this gimmick in it, just in case I'm going to be doing this trick. What really stood out for me on this was Henry's teaching. So you've got the teaching of the card box, you've got the teaching of how to put it in the card box, which was super clear. It's very easy, and that is not very much of the tutorials, an hour 15 minutes long, and you're putting it in the card box is quick and easy, nothing to worry about. But then you've got how to handle the card being dumped out of the box, how to show the cards being put in the box, and that is he teaches the motivation for that. He teaches when to do it, how to hold it, how to show the card. Lots and lots of detail, very, very clear. He also teaches the Mercury card fold incredibly well, lots and lots of different angles, and encourages you to practice it. Obviously, I would say you might want to go and buy John Allen's Perfect Score to help you out. But if you watch Henry, if you practice enough, you can do it without any help at all. And that might just save you a little bit of time. And it is, you can practice it in front of the TV. And once you've mastered the Mercury card folder, you can do this trick. But he gives you more. Yes, Henry then teaches his ambitious card routine. Nothing particularly special, but it is taught really, really well. And if you want a nice, short, punchy, powerful, ambitious card routine, it's ideal. And also in his performance, you get to see the amount of distance you can put between yourself and the box. You can just drop the box on the floor or have it on a table a long way away, and it just adds that space, adds to the impossibility of this signed card that's been in the deck that they've been handling is now over there. It's a really, really nice performance to watch, and Henry's teaching of it is really, really good. The second routine is Henry's card under box, which again is brilliant as well, and it's all just taught wonderfully. It is so clear. It really does encourage you to give these routines a go. They're not difficult. It just takes a bit of practice. And with that, so with this, you get two dynamite card effects with a killer ending that you can do with an ordinary deck of cards and a Sharpie. There's also the tip section at the end where Henry runs through if you haven't got a table or, you know, any awkward situations and things like that. He has been working this for 15 years, so he does know what he's talking about, and he shares it all. One thing he doesn't do really is teach you how to customize the gimmick or change it. I've had a look at the gimmick, I've sort of experimented, and it would be possible to change it if you wanted to do it with, say, a Phoenix deck of cards or a Cohorts deck of cards. That is possible with a little bit of arts and crafts and some care. The tutorial is an hour 15 minutes long with the two routines. It could have been much longer if only it had Craig Petty on it, but sadly it doesn't. If Craig was on it, he probably might have added some things. You could change this for billets. You could have the billets in the card box that they could switch. You could do it with notes. Any way of customizing this gimmick you can think of would be possible in my mind, and that opens up a whole range of routines as well. So don't feel limited by just what Henry's taught you, even though what Henry has taught you is perfect for this gimmick. It's a handmade gimmick. It's really well made. It will last. You can transfer it from box to box. If you were getting just the gimmick, then perhaps, you know, £25 might be a better price, throwing the teaching as well, and it is a bargain. It's Mystery Card Box by Henry Harrius, $31.99. And next up, we have TTTCBE by Robert Giobbi, or in fact, the trick that cannot be explained. The fact the trick cannot be explained is going to make it very, very hard for me to tell you what the effect is. But basically, it's an open prediction that Di Vernon came up with, and he used to perform this, and he was never going to be published. It was eventually published by Louis Gaston in Inner Card Secrets, the Inner Card Trilogy, More Inner Secrets, the second book, that also contains such brilliant tricks as twisting the aces. Really, really recommend these books to you if you can still get hold of them. And Di Vernon used to perform this trick. He really enjoyed performing it, but it was hard to publish because there was no real straight method and straight outcome. Di would write a prediction down and then hand someone a deck of cards, and they might cut the cards or they might count down a certain number of cards, and whichever card they arrived at would match the card that he'd written as his prediction. but there were various procedures involved, and no one, including Dye, was quite sure how the prediction was going to be arrived at. So it was a jazzy kind of routine that obviously I can understand why that is so much fun to perform. What Roberto has done here is kept as close to the plot as possible, but the prediction is now in an envelope, and that gives you slightly more out. So instead of having to hit one card directly as Dye used to do, you can now hit one of 4, which is very, very helpful if you're thinking about the odds. The actual envelopes and gimmicks, the gimmicks are quite nice actually. So you also get a 52-to-1 card, which makes a bit of a playful gag, and then you get the revelation as well. These gimmicks are based on an Alan Shaxton idea from his book Practical Sorcery. The instructions are in booklet form, and for this effect that is probably ideal because there's no sleights involved. The cards are usually out of your hands. You're not touching them. All you're doing is running through various different procedures depending upon how the trick is going so far. It's a bit like, I remember when I was a child reading those books where you had a choice as to which chapter you went to, what decision you made, whether you went down the left tunnel or the right tunnel. It's a bit like that. And Roberto gives you plenty of ideas to get to the required outcome. There are more ideas in here as well, and you also get the feeling from reading this book that Dye kept on contacting Lewis and adding more tips and methods. Ideally, it would be a very, very short, very clean, direct hit every time. It's not going to be like that. It's fun to do. I mean, mentalists often play with this idea of, a 50-50 chance because it's really good when you get a great hit. This trick has that feel to it. And you really want to be quite a confident performer because you don't want to look like you're faffing too much, and you want to make sure that every phase feels very deliberate and that is exactly how the trick is always performed. So I would suggest it's either one in which you're going to learn some really good presentation skills, or you want to already have those presentation skills and just try and enjoy performing it. The more you perform it, of course, the better you'll get at it. And it is sleightless. So it's a self-working trick. When performed well and with a bit of luck, it is a complete and utter fooler for everyone in the room, regardless of their magic experience. It was a favourite of Dye Verdon's, so what can I say? Roberto has made it a little bit easier. Still not surefire, so you're gonna have to be willing to jazz if you like taking risks. If you like improvising, then this would be a brilliant trick for you. It is the trick that cannot be explained. It is 1899. And alas, that's it for another week. If you do have any questions about the tricks I've shown this week, last week, or any advice, then just ask me in the comments. And also, I have hit 862 subscribers, which is probably about 860 more than I thought I'd ever get. But I'm still clinging on to getting to 1,000. So if you don't already subscribe, please do click the subscribe button. But until next week, grab some magic, go out there, and really, really please do go and have some fun and entertain with the best hobby in the world. Bye-bye.